Welcome to episode 6 of season 2 of Agricola Card of the Week, where I hope to pique your interest in some of the more unusual cards and combos, rekindle your interest in the game, and make you aware of some strategies and pitfalls for the next time you play. Today we will be discussing the final of our card expansions, my favourite, the Netherlands deck. Proudly sponsored by Yeoman. Available in the App Store now. So out of the 4 major card expansions that I'm discussing in this series, this is by far my favourite because I think it adds a lot of variety to the base game, so it combines really well with the basic cards. If you're going to buy one card expansion, this would be it. It has some unusual cards, some interesting cards. The artwork is quite different than the base game, and that takes a little bit of getting used to. But overall, the flavour, the interest, the variety that this brings to the game is much appreciated. It was the first one that we got and certainly still remains my favourite. So I'm going to look at 4 occupations from this deck to give you some of the flavour of those cards. They're all 1+ occupations, so that would apply to all games no matter how many players you play with. The employer. It allows you to place guest markers 4, 7 and 10 rounds from your current round. And then basically when you get to those rounds, you take the guest token and you can use it to perform an action. Essentially you are trading a turn now for 3 turns later on, which that can be a little bit hard to sort of say, well, I'm going to sacrifice a turn early on, but by the time those workers come out, there's more stuff available on the board, there's more probably competition for things like animals, and they can be really handy. I really do like this card, almost always play this card. You do have to have a bit of a dedication to getting it out early enough to get those 3 extra actions, but a really nice card. The investor. When you play this card, you can get 2 major improvements for 1 food each, and then you discard all the cards in your hand. So you're getting 2 major improvements really quite cheaply, sacrificing the ability to play other cards. I have played this card where I managed to get I deliberately got a bunch of other cards that I wanted out early and then played it. Of course then it's later in the game and you could maybe have done other things, but still a nice card. Some probably would consider it be a bit powerful, but you know, there's that trade-off. Do I want to get this stuff now, or do I want to, you know, just boom, you can get an oven and a fireplace, you know, on your first turn if you really wanted to. The assistant tiller. Whenever you use the day labour action space, you play our field. Nice, simple card. I do like those sort of day labour extra action abilities. Basic card, very good. Finally, for the occupations, the ice skate sharpener. Each harvest, you can pay a wood and a food to use an action space without placing a person. Without placing a person is important because some other cards do indicate that you have to be, they only work if you're actually placing a person. So this is one of those ones that lets you use an action space without placing a person. I have used this card right towards the end of the game, where sometimes you're getting towards the end, you're thinking, well, I've played all my occupations, so I'm not going to bother playing anymore. But I've actually sort of gotten to that point where it's like, well, I've got 2 harvests left to go. If I do this now, I've got some spare wood, I've got some spare food, I can actually have 2 extra actions in the game. So I'm playing an occupation that costs me 1, but I can have 2. Also, because you're doing this without encumbrance of other people on the board, you can do things like a family growth without room at the end, without worrying about other people getting in the way, or a plough, 1 field, plough and sow action towards the end. I have actually used this after the very last harvest to do another sow action to get those last vegetables and wheat back on the board to get the maximum points on those. So quite a handy little card, I do like it. I'm also looking at 4 minor improvements from the Netherlands deck. The caravan costs 3 wood, and it basically is a room for a family member. Essentially that means you can do a family growth without having to actually build another room. These sorts of cards are very controversial. A lot of people don't like cards that let you kind of cheat on family growth. I tend to think that, you know, Agricola is a game about unfair advantages. That's sort of what the cards are about. And also, if somebody else is able to do a family growth, or maybe able to not take other spaces because they're using that space, then maybe I can expand my house because they're not in quite such a hurry to do so, or build some extra stables where they're not taking up that space. So I do find these things do tend to balance out. Anyway, I like that card. Another one which could potentially give you some family growth early is the wooden shoes. Costs 1 wood. Whenever you use action from one of the round 1 to 4 action spaces, you can then use the round card that would come out on the next turn. So basically you're able to access those round cards a turn earlier than anyone else. You have that prerequisite of having to use one of the basic actions first, but then you can jump ahead. You could use that to get early vegetables, so that's another card for my list of early vegetables that I've missed out on. It would be potentially only 1 turn earlier, but there's a 50-50 chance you could do that before the second harvest. But I would tend to be thinking more that this is a good card for doing that family growth without room towards the end, or that plough and sow a field action towards the end. But a nice little card. I like those kind of twists of the rules where you doing things out of order, and I really do like that card. It's come out a few times in a game. The ditch allows you to plant vegetables between 2 fields, so as if it was another field. You've got to have 3 family members and it costs you 2 food, but I have actually used this one. The having of 3 family members does kind of balance it up a bit, because if you could just grab a vegetable early with one of those cards that gives you early vegetables and plonk them down between 2 other fields, probably maybe a little bit too powerful. So it's kind of balanced up by you have to have grown your family to a certain point before you can get it, but a nice little basic card. Finally, for the Netherlands deck, the herring pot. Nice simple card. Every time you use the fishing action space, you can put 3 food on the next, or so 1 food each on the next 3 round spaces, and then you get that food. Makes the fishing action space a lot more useful. Costs you a clay. Nice pretty little card. Basic, simple, love it. Thank you for watching this episode of Agricola Card of the Week. I hope you've enjoyed this series. I'll be taking a couple of months off to film the next series. We'll be going back to sort of more the original format, but I just wanted to step back and just review some of the basic things about how I play Agricola and my setup and what expansions I have. Please consider the iOS app Yeoman, which we always use for scoring our games. I wrote that very soon after first getting into Agricola. It really does just make that final stage just so quick and easy. Please like or comment below and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Technically it's 2 decks. It's the Flanders deck and the Wallonia deck, but for most purposes we're just going to refer to it as the Belgium deck. Welcome to the first season of Agricola Card of the Week, where I'll hopefully pique your interest in some of the more unusual cards and combos. Proudly sponsored by Yeoman, available in the App Store now.